everyone. My name is Pastor Dara Rath, and I'm the pastor at Faith Lutheran Church in Port Elgin. And each week I bring you a short story or an essay written by some incredible authors with differing opinions about things. And so these stories take about 5 minutes to watch. Some of them are funny, and some of them just give you something to think about. So the story this week is written by my friend Dave Davis, who is a retired family physician. He's an educator. He's also an award-winning author of a book called A Potter's Tale. And he writes columns for the Hamilton Spectator. So recently he wrote this article that I'm going to read you, and the title is What Comes After Omicron? And here's what he writes. I think it was the face masks I noticed first. The new discards of the pandemic, replacements for the throwaway Tim Horton cups we used to see. It's the debris of the COVID years, our generation's curse. The debris followed the time of quieter streets, worse in the lockdowns when children and their parents stayed home and their grandparents were confined all alone. The mask debris gave way to protests, a demonstration of anger about the pandemic. How dare it happen to us? Why couldn't the government do more? Why wouldn't it do less? Face mask debris and residual anger are two of the current traces of COVID-19, now called Omicron, since COVID has become almost a dirty word. What will the other residuals be? Here's no particular order, are a few hunches. First, there are good things. Working at home is clearly more acceptable, giving more quality time to families, less commuting for the worker, and less pollution for our planet. There's more room for exercise, an increased emphasis on walking, for example. There's the expanding nature of communication. Cousins and friends from a distance can visit regularly using video conferencing platforms like Zoom. I can talk to my doctors, note the plural, I'm getting up there, by phone. Talking to doctors by phone. Hybrid work doesn't mean driving your half-battery, half-gas vehicle to the office. Maybe there's a bit less flu and colds with increased attention to the public health and safety, to hand washing, and to staying home when we're sick. But then there are the problems of the post-Omicron period, partly caused directly by the pandemic, partly just prodded along by it. Among them, the most important is the human loss, the empty seats at holiday tables, the aunts, the uncles, the sisters, the brothers, the grandparents gone. There's the loss of workers, witnessed by absent wait staff, by low numbers of hospital workers, by crowded, angry lines in airports. There are enough supply chain woes demonstrated by empty grocery shelves and now by rising prices. There's a risk of a financial meltdown. There's a risk of another variant, God forbid, one more lethal like SARS and more contagious like Omicron. Perhaps the most insidious of all, there is fear, and with it, political heat, some of it even combustible, generating violence. Both American and Canadian capitals have witnessed what anxiety and anger can inspire. And now, worst of all, the lethal, famine-inducing, obscene war in Ukraine, perhaps nudged into existence by all the turmoil. I wonder if the mad, modern-day Rasputin reasoned, maybe when they're paying attention to what's happening over there, I can invade over here. At this point in the great scales of life, the good seems to be seriously outweighed by the bad. Outmanned, outmaneuvered, whatever. In that frankly pessimistic view of the world, I wonder, what's after Omicron? In the Greek alphabet, it's pi, just like P follows O in ours. There's an interesting thing about pi. Scientific American says it's an irrational number. That means its decimal form doesn't end, like 1/4 stops cold at 0.25. Irrational also means it can't become repetitive, like 1/6 becomes 0.1666. All of which is a little frightening, don't you think? Words like irrational, words like non-repetitive. When I hear that, I hear not predictable. Here you have it, pi, the post-Omicron period. Some good, lots of not so good, and lots of potentially awful. So what's next? I would suggest 2 things. First, doing what we do naturally as Canadians, being good public health adherents, offering kindness to neighbors, tolerating supply chain issues, encouraging our workers, especially the front line and healthcare folk. Perhaps helping Ukrainians when we can. And second, getting ready for an interesting ride. Buckle up, you might say. I say thank you, Dave Davis, for your perspective. It certainly gives us something to think about. So, blessings on your day, and thanks for taking 5.